Welcome to SportsKop's 2018 NFL Draft coverage. This is part 2. If you have not seen part 1, this will make very little sense to you, so highly recommend clicking on that video or clicking on the article in the description. It kind of simplifies this video and makes it easier for the listener if they'd rather read this stuff instead. Anyways, let's get started with the Los Angeles Chargers picking at number 17. I have them getting Daron Payne because they have a bigger need on the interior side of their defense. However, Daron Payne was selected by Washington in the actual draft. So in that one, Marcus Davenport is their selection instead. This is a pure potential pick just because of what Davenport and Bosa together could be. It's just that I think on the interior side, they have a bigger need, which is why I would prefer them to get Payne. It just doesn't happen in that way in the actual draft. For number 18, in the actual draft, I see Seattle getting Mike McGlinchey. They know their offensive line is horrible, and McGlinchey is someone I'm very high on, as mentioned in the previous video. However, McGlinchey is not available in my draft, so I have them getting defensive end Marcus Davenport instead, trying to build that try to rebuild that defense after losing so many key pieces this year. Number 19, Dallas needs to get Leighton Vander Esch. Just because Sean Lee is always injured and their defense is pretty terrible when he's not taking the field, they need someone in the middle of their defense that they can rely on. And Leighton's super, super talented. All right, number 20. In the actual draft, I see Detroit picking defensive end Harold Landry. He's the kind of defensive end / outside linebacker that the Lions have really liked in the past. I just think they need to be improving their own offensive line instead by getting guard Will Hernandez. Sure, it's great to wreak havoc on all the other good quarterbacks in that division, but I think it's time you need to protect your money, and your money's in Matthew Stafford. So let's try to get him a talented offensive line. All right, so Cincinnati needs to help the inside of their offensive line as well. So that's why in the actual draft I have them getting Will Hernandez, whereas in my draft I have them getting center James Daniels. Same idea, just I don't know. I'm very high on improving your offensive line before addressing other needs, just because I think the offensive line leads to better run games, and better run games lead to better passing games because you have more plays to work with, bigger options, harder for the defense to guess what you're doing. That's just personal philosophy. All right, so 22 again is interesting because I have predicted that the Bills make a trade in the actual draft. So here Cleveland selects Joshua Jackson, the cornerback out of Iowa. They need a lot of help in their secondary, and yes, they've added some pieces, but they need more if they want to be an elite defensive squad. So Joshua Jackson's their pick here. I really don't think Buffalo should be trading up. So if Buffalo stands pat, they can get Isaiah Wynn here, who's still a guard that's very well rated, and he's worthy of a pick here. Now 23, I did not buy the Lamar Jackson hype at all. Sorry, the Lamar Jackson to New England hype at all. I thought it was all smoke screens, but after doing my own drafts out, I kind of realized hey, this works out pretty well. New England also has the option of not picking him here at 23, but picking him later at 31. I don't think they take the risk of letting another team trade in between and picking Jackson before they can, so I think they do get him here in the actual draft. I just think you're on Tom Brady's last few years. You might as well keep trying to compete, and to compete they need an elite defense, so they should be getting linebacker Rashaan Evans, another player I'm really high on. Just improving your defense is key when you're in the Super Bowl and giving up 40 plus points to a backup quarterback. 24 Carolina, they have not had success picking offensive players. So I think that's one of the reasons I think they get Mike Hughes instead of Courtland Sutton. Another reason is because they haven't had solid cornerback play since Josh Norman left the team. I just think they need to be addressing wide receiver more because Greg Olson's literally in the last year of his contract. Excuse me. And Cam Newton doesn't have a whole lot of talent to throw to since they traded Kelvin Benjamin away. I think Sutton's the choice here. Can't really go wrong with Mike Hughes, but that's where we are. All right, so number 25, Tennessee. In the actual draft, they'll be selecting James Daniels because their offensive line is very run heavy. They need to improve the interior, especially with Derrick Henry, who is now expected to carry their offense. And yes, I agree. I think that's a good pick for them if he's available. However, in my draft, he's not. So they get defensive end Sam Hubbard instead. They need to improve their defense if they want to actually compete for a championship. Now, 26, unless I've been misinformed for months now, I don't see any other situation playing out where Atlanta does not get Taven Bryan unless he's selected before they get to go. They've just been so high on him. It seems like it's going to happen pretty much. So in both drafts, Atlanta gets Taven Bryan. New Orleans also has a consensus between both drafts. Sorry, my dog is very tired, it seems. So yeah, the Coby Fleener experiment has not worked out at all in New Orleans. They need a new tight end, and Dallas Goedert is the only one worthy of a first-round pick in my eyes. So he'd be a great fit here. Number 28, Pittsburgh needs their Ryan Shazier replacement after he suffered that gruesome injury. So in the actual draft, they get linebacker Rashaan Evans. However, the Patriots took him in my draft. So instead, they get cornerback Mike Hughes because they have not had good secondary play outside of Joe Hayden. 29, Jacksonville gets DJ Moore in both drafts. They don't have a number one wide receiver. And though I am a big Marquise Lee fan, I think they need a lot of talent on the outside, especially if Blake Bortles is your quarterback. You need to get him some help. Number 30, Minnesota gets Isaiah Wynn in the actual draft, whereas I have them getting Colton Miller. The only difference here is that Isaiah Wynn was taken earlier in my draft. And I think Minnesota and we know that they need to improve their offensive line because Dalvin Cook and Kirk Cousins are going to carry that offense for years now. Might as well try to make that offensive line as formidable as possible. All right, now 31, New England needs to get their Nate Soldier replacement, which is why they're getting a tackle in both of these drafts. Colton Miller has not been taken in the actual draft, and he's got a lot of high upside. So him going to New England would actually be great for them. Otherwise, they get Orlando Brown in my draft. Still a good offensive tackle to get there. Now, 32, this was really hard for me. In the actual draft, I feel like I'm almost certain Philadelphia trades down just because they don't have any desperate needs for their team, and they don't have many picks because they gave up so many trying to get Carson Wentz. I, however, am so high on Darius Geis. I think he's very worthy of a first-round pick. It wouldn't surprise me if some team just randomly gets him in the mid-15s. However, most mock drafts I see have him going in the second, and I even saw a couple in the third round last week. So I think Darius Geis is a first-round worthy talent. I think he can really not change the offense because their offense is so good as is, but he can be the lead back in that offense. So Darius Geis is who I have in my actual draft, but otherwise in what should happen or what will happen in come Thursday, they could literally trade with anyone in the league. All right, so thank you for listening. Hopefully some of these turn out to be accurate. I know most mock drafts go down to toilet after picks 1 through 10. So yeah, we'll see. Have a good day.